Namaste and a very good morning to all of you. I welcome you to my channel, The Outlier. My name is Mithun. In today's video, we'll be looking at how to create graphs using SPSS. Even before I proceed to demonstrate how to create graphs using SPSS, may I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. In this video, we will create 5 different graphs. The first graph that we will be creating is a pie chart. We will then move to an option which is called as the heat map. The third graph that we will be creating is a clustered box plot. The fourth chart that we'll be looking at is a scatter plot. Last but not the least, we will also look at Scatterplot Matrix. With this background, let us now focus on the data set that we have. As you can see here, this data set is called as the customer subset dataset. This dataset is present in the demos folder of IBM SPSS Modeler. There are 7 columns in this dataset. The first one is customer ID. Second would be region. Then you have age of the customer, age category, credit debt, which is measured in 1000. You have the income level of the customer, and you have the gender of the customer. Let's interpret the first record here. The first customer has a certain ID. She belongs to the zone number 2. Her age is 39 years. Therefore, she is categorized within the bracket of 35 to 49. Her credit card debt in 1000 would be 0.84. Income level would be $42,000, and her gender is given as female. One question which is important here is, what is the sample size in this data? Let me go to the last record here. You can see the sample size is 80. Now, with this background, let us proceed to creating few simple graphs using SPSS. The first graph that I'd like to create is a pie chart. Let me click on the graphs option. The second option from the top is what is called as graph board template chooser. Let me hit the reset button. You can see the 7 variables that we were talking about in the dataset. In the canvas to the right-hand side, my apologies, in the canvas to the left-hand side, all the variables are listed. You're seeing a blank screen to the right-hand side because we have not yet selected any variable. My goal here is to create a pie chart. To create a pie chart, you need a categorical variable. I will choose geographical indicator, for which I would need the pie chart. The moment I select geographical indicator, SPSS shows me 5 options which are relevant. One is a bar of counts plot. Second one is what is called as choropleth of counts. The third option is dot plot. The fourth is histogram. And the last of the options here is a pie chart. We can select the last option, that is pie of counts. I'd like to take a pause here and draw your attention to a very important point. SPSS is a menu-driven software, so you don't need to write any syntax here. If you have used R or Python, you might appreciate the fact that it is very difficult. Even to create a simple chart, you need to write 5 to 6 lines of code. You need to install the package, activate the library, and if you were to make one simple mistake, you'll get half a page error. All that is avoided here in SPSS. Select the variable, select the appropriate graph, and hit the OK button. We are in the output window of SPSS, and you can see here, SPSS gives you a nice little pie chart. Each slice here represents the distribution of a particular zone. You have 5 different zones here, and therefore you're getting 5 different slices. The purpose of this video is not to explain the interpretation of the graph. The purpose of this video is to explain how to generate graphs using SPSS. So I'll skip the interpretation part and make a move on to the next important graph, which is called as the heat map. I've seen a lot of videos where people generate heat map using R or Python. There are very few tutorials on how to create a heat map using SPSS. So this video specifically highlights how to create a heat map using SPSS. Let's now go to the graphs menu bar. The second option from the top is what is called as graph board template chooser. Let me select this. What happens is SPSS gives you the old option that you have selected. We need to be slightly careful here. Let me go ahead and reset all the options. To generate a heat map, you need to have 2 categorical variables and 1 scale variable. I repeat, we need to have 2 categorical variables and 1 scale variable. The first categorical variable that I will specify is geographical indicator. May I draw your attention to all the graphs on the right-hand side? You don't see the option of a heat map. When you choose only 1 categorical variable, you cannot create a heat map. So let me go ahead and select the second categorical variable, which is age category. You are seeing a lot of options, but I'm not able to see a heat map. The third variable that I will be selecting here is a scale variable, that is household income in thousands. I repeat, the third variable that I'll be selecting is household income in thousands. So let me summarize this once again. To create a heat map in SPSS, you need to have 2 categorical variables and 1 scale variable. The 2 categorical variables are geographical indicator and age category, and the scale variable is household income in 1000. You can see here, SPSS gives me the option of heat map. Let me go ahead and select the heat map. Let me see if there is any relevant option that I can select in the detailed tab. As you can see here, there are different options which allows you to customize the look of the graph. I'll avoid all of these things, go back to my original options, ensure that 2 categorical variables and 1 scale variable have been selected. With this, we are all set to generate a heat map. Let me go ahead and hit the OK button. You can see here in the output window, you have a heat map. Now, how do you interpret this particular graph? As you can see here, in the y-axis, we have age category. You have 5 different categories of age. 18 to 24 is the first category. Then we have 25 to 34. The third category is 35 to 49, so on and so forth. So along the vertical axis, we have 5 different categories. Let me now draw your attention to the x-axis, where we have geographic indicator. How many categories do we have here? We have 5 different categories. That is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, all the way up to zone 5. So in the x-axis, we have 5 categories. In the y-axis, we have 5 categories. Therefore, you will be able to see 25 different boxes here. 5 into 5 is 25. So you will be able to see 25 boxes here. If you were to have 10 categories in the x-axis and 5 categories in the y-axis. So 10 into 5 would be 50. You'll be able to see a heat map with 50 boxes. Here, I have 25 boxes. How do I interpret this? To interpret this, I'll have to look at the legend section. You can see here, SPSS gives a description saying mean household income in 1000. And there are different shades of red color. The darkest color of red represents the average value of 120. This is the biggest number. Then you have a slightly lighter shade of red, wherein the average salary is 100. As you look down, you have lighter shades of red, indicating the mean salary is lesser and lesser. When you look at a white space here, the mean salary is approximately 0. So darker the red color. So this is how we interpret it. Darker the red color, higher the average salary. Lighter shades of red indicate low value for household income. I'd like to draw your attention to 2 or 3 important boxes. Let's specifically focus on this box. This is the darkest of all the boxes. Now, this belongs to zone 1, and in the y-axis, you can see the age category is 50 to 64. How do we interpret this? Customers who belong to zone number 1 and whose age is between 50 to 64 years have the highest mean income in 1000. I repeat, customers who belong to zone 1 and whose age category is between 50 and 64 have the highest household income. The second and the third could be this particular box. Here you see zone 4, the age category would remain the same, 50 to 64. So those customers who belong to zone 4 and who have an age between 50 and 64 have a high average household income. Let's also look at zone 5. Customers who belong to zone 5 and whose age is greater than 65 years have quite a high level of household income. This is about the highest household income. Let me draw your attention to this particular box, which is white in color. When you look at this particular box, it represents zone 4 customers who belong to the age group of 25 to 34. So what would be our summary here? Those customers who belong to zone 4 and whose age is between 25 and 34 have the lowest level of income. So this is how very, very complex information can be summarized in a very simple and effective way using a heat map. So this is how SPSS makes it very simple to generate and interpret a heat map. Let's now proceed to look at the third type of chart, which is called as a clustered box plot. To generate a clustered box plot, let me repeat the procedure. I'm going to go to Graphs menu bar. The second option here is Graph Board Template Chooser. Let me hit the reset button. Now, to create a box plot, in fact, a clustered box plot to be more precise, I need to have 2 categorical variables and 1 scale variable. The categorical variable that I will be choosing would be geographical indicator. I can also select the second categorical variable, which is gender. These are the 2 categorical variables. I need to select a scale variable, which is household income in 1000. As you can see here, there are very, very interesting options that SPSS gives me. As in option number 2, A heat map can also be used here. However, I like to choose the option clustered box plot. You can go ahead and select the clustered box plot. If you want to interchange the role of the variables, what you can do is go to the detailed section. In the detailed section, I like to draw your attention to the x-axis and the color option. The x-axis here will have geographic indicator. Upon second thoughts, if you want to change this to gender or any other categorical variable, you can do that. However, I'm happy with geographic indicator along the x-axis. I like to produce two separate box plots with different colors, and therefore under the color section, I have gender. There is no confusion as far as y-axis is concerned. It has to be a scale variable. So to summarize this again, the nature of the variables, whether it is a heat map or a clustered bar chart, will be the same. You need two categorical variables and one scale variable. With these selections, we are all set to create a clustered box plot. Let me go ahead and hit the OK button. As you can see here, your clustered box plot is ready. You have 5 zones here: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and zone 5. This is as far as your geographic indicator or x-axis is concerned. Have a look at the y-axis, which indicates household income in 1000. Under the legend section, you can see the blue colored box represents the male gender. The green color box represents the female gender. When we look at zone number 1, you can take a look at the thick line at the center, which indicates the median. The median salary for male customers is the highest. I repeat, those customers who belong to zone number 1 and who are males have the highest household income. You can see here the other averages are lesser as compared to the average here. Second, when you look at the size of the box here, box plot rather, when you look at the size of the box plot, it is higher as compared to the other 9 box plot. What does this indicate? It simply tells me that because the size of the box plot is very, very large, there is more variation in the household income for male customers belonging to zone 1. So this is how you can create a clustered box plot using SPSS. So far, we have seen how to create a pie chart, a heat map, a clustered box plot. Let's now proceed to create the fourth type of graph, which is called as a scatterplot. To create a scatterplot, let's go to Graphs menu bar. The second option from the top is Graph Board Template Chooser. Let me hit the reset button. Now, we want to create a scatterplot. The choice of variables here will be very, very different. When we are using a scatterplot, please do not choose any categorical variable. We can select 2 scale variables, that is credit card debt in thousands and household income in thousands. Please keep this point in mind. You need 2 scale variables to create a basic scatter plot. The moment you select these 2 variables, SPSS shows you multiple options. I'm going to select the option Scatterplot to check or verify what is the distribution of credit card debt in 1000 with respect to household income in 1000. Let me go ahead and hit the OK button. You can see here we have credit card debt in thousands, and this is household income in thousands. It looks like there is a near linear relationship because the distribution of the points are not exactly along the 45-degree line. There is some spread here. However, it can be approximated to a linear relationship. It would be very interesting to see how the variables behave once I take log transformation. However, that is outside the scope of today's video. I'm able to see a few outliers here. This is one of the outliers. This is also an outlier. This is the third outlier that you can identify. So this is as far as creating a scatter plot is concerned. Remember, for a scatter plot, you need to scale variables. Now, many times, the data that we have may be a lot complex than the ones that we are talking about. We may have multiple scale variables. If you have to summarize the distribution of scale variables, which are 3 or more than 3, a simple scatter plot like this would not suffice. A simple scatter plot can handle only 2 variables at a time. If you have more than 2 variables, this option wouldn't help me. What is the answer? This is where an option called as SPLOM or Scatterplot Matrix, I repeat, Scatterplot Matrix comes into picture. To create a Scatterplot matrix in SPSS, you can go to the Graphs menu bar. By now, you're familiar. The second option from the top, which is Graph Board Template Chooser, has to be selected. I'm going to hit the reset button so that it's very, very clear. I need to select multiple scale variables. Age is a scale variable. You can see dot plot, histogram, and histogram with normal distribution are appropriate for one single variable. I'm going to select the second scale variable. I'm going to include the third scale variable. So this is quite complex because we are no longer talking about 2 dimensions. We are talking about 3-dimension structure. We have age, credit card, debt in 1,000, and household income in 1,000. What does SPSS say? SPSS says that you can go ahead and create a 3-dimensional scatter plot or a bubble plot or a parallel plot or what is called as Scatterplot Matrix. This is a very, very important graph which is called as Scatterplot Matrix. The last option that you could try is a surface plot. To visualize such complex information, a Scatterplot Matrix would suffice. So having selected Scatterplot Matrix or SPLOM, we can go ahead and hit the OK button. This is the output of SPLOM. You can see here, we are getting a 3x3 panel. In the first box, what you're seeing is the distribution of age. You can see here, this graph is what is called as a histogram, which showcases the univariate distribution of the variable age. Have a look at this variable. Here, this is not a univariate distribution. This is a bivariate distribution of age in the y-axis and credit card debt in 1,000 along the horizontal axis. I repeat, this is a 2-dimensional graph with age along the y-axis and credit card debt in 1,000. How do I know age is along the y-axis? You have age here. So for all these 3 graphs, the y-axis will be age. The x-axis here is credit card debt in 1,000. Have a look at the last graph here. Age is again along the y-axis and household income in 1,000 will be along the x-axis. This is how a Scatterplot matrix gives you the distribution of 2 variables at a time. The first one is just a histogram. The second and the third here would be a scatter plot. One thing that you need to keep in mind is that along the diagonal, that is top left to bottom right-hand side corner, you will be able to get a histogram for one single variable. Let me scroll down. You're able to see your second histogram here. This histogram is for the variable credit card debt in 1000. If I scroll further down, you are able to see the distribution of household income in 1000. The other graphs along the off-diagonal elements represent the scatter plot for the two variables. So this is what is called as SPLOM or Scatterplot Matrix. With this, I have come to the end of today's video. In today's video, we have seen 5 different graphs: a pie chart, heat map, clustered box plot, scatter plot, and a SPLOM. Let me quickly run through these options. Right at the top, what you're seeing is a pie of counts. The second option that we have seen is a heat map. The third is a clustered box plot. The fourth option here is a scatter plot. The last of the options here is SPLOM or Scatterplot Matrix. Thank you very much for watching this particular video. I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. Thank you very much once again. Have a great day ahead.